Now this project is to build a work area in a small workshop, and it's going to consist of a workbench and an overhead cabinet for storage. Now we'll begin with the workbench. I'll just go over some of the features and aspects of building a very inexpensive workbench. We'll start with the top. We'll go up here to the top of the bench. The black arrow indicates the actual workbench top, and the top is made up of the chipboard that you see down below in the shelf. And the chipboard itself doesn't make for a very good top because it obviously will come apart. The chips do flake off in time. So we laminated a 3/4 inch plywood top to the chipboard, so it actually gives us 1 1/4 inch top. So it's a very solid top. We can pound on that and get pretty good results. And in between the front and back braces at the top here, we also have cross members going across to give the top additional support. Now moving along to the center of the bench at the back, we haven't installed them yet, but we're going to put in an L bracket and fasten it right to the wall, and that way the bench is nice and solid and won't start shaking on us. The purple arrows to the right at the top indicates the overhang we have. We have overhang on the sides and also on the front. And the idea of that is, well, obviously if we look to the far left, we've got a nice little wood vise fastened under that overhang, and also it gives you a clamping surface if you want to clamp anything to the bench. If the front of the bench was even with the top, it would probably look better, but we don't have any place to clamp anything to, so an overhang is really important, serves a really good purpose. And at the very back where the L brackets are, we have no overhang at all. The back is just simply flush with the supports on the bench. Now you see the construction materials we used here. It's just simple plywood, 2x4s, and some particle board. We wanted to keep this as inexpensive as we could, and that worked out very well for us. Now moving down, the shelf, the center shelf, is not fastened to the bench at all. You can see by the white ovals I have here, we've put a 2x4 joining the legs together, and that gives it some support. And we put a dado in there, and we slid in our particle board. Now that shelf is a sliding shelf, which is really nice because the bench is fairly deep. And now we can pull that shelf forward and get at some of the products at the back that we've got stored. Probably don't want to store an awful lot of weight here, but for small hand tools and fasteners, it makes for an ideal way to access those without knocking everything over in the front as you're trying to reach it. Now also on this shelf, you'll notice the yellow arrows here. We put a back on it, so that when we pull the shelf out, our stuff doesn't fall down the back. And on the bottom, we also put a lip, but this lip goes down instead of up. And that acts as a stop for the shelf. So when it hits the front of the 2x4s, it stops. And also is a pull, so that we can actually pull this shelf out with 2 hands. If we do get a considerable amount of weight on it, it's going to pull out a lot easier. Now the bottom shelf, as you see, what we did is we kept the shelf in one piece, and we just cut holes for the 2x4 legs to fit through. Again, this adds additional strength to the bench, keeps it from twisting, and then we simply fastened our 2x4 frame holding that shelf to the legs, and it worked out to be a very, very nice little workbench, and costing very little to make. Well, there you go. It gives you some ideas. Now we'll move on to the storage cabinet, which is in a little bit more detail, and we'll go through the storage cabinet bit by bit and show you how we constructed that. Now the cabinet materials are basically the same as what we used for the workbench below. We used a particle board for facing over a light framework, and the doors, rather than using plywood, we couldn't really get any plywood that didn't have a bit of a cup to it, so we used 1/2 inch MDF, that's medium density fiberboard, and we put a little edge on it. We routed a little round over edge and added a couple of oak handles, and it came out pretty nice. We're still just trying to figure out whether we're going to stain this or not. This is for my son's workshop, and he kind of likes it just in the natural look, and I must say I do too. So we'll go into the construction details of this right in the next slide here. Well, here's a shot of my workshop where we actually built the cabinet. And what we're doing is we're trying to replicate to some degree the cabinet that I built years ago for my own workshop. And it's at the back there, you can see with the big arrow, yellow arrow at the top. My cabinet was 8 feet long and 3 feet high. And we finished it with, again, MDF doors. We used 4 doors on this particular cabinet because it was 2 feet larger than the one we're building now. And so we needed to cut the size of those doors down just for weight purposes. So we're trying to replicate the one I already have there, which works very well. Now in the foreground, this is the framework, the basic framework for the cabinet we're building for my son. And overall length, it's going to be 3 feet high, 6 feet long. And it's going to have 2 shelves, and that's going to give us 3 actual compartments for storage. Now this picture here, we're looking at the front of the cabinet, and you can see in the center and along the top we've already got a bit of framing in there for our face frame. And we're going to finish the top, the front of this cabinet with one solid piece of the particle board, and then we're going to route it out so that that one piece of particle board is going to give us a racking strength on the front of the cabinet. And that's important when you're going to put some weight in something that's this large. Now here's another shot of the cabinet with looks like archery practice. I got so many arrows going here, but we'll go through them one by one. Now we're looking at the cabinet. It's actually upside down, okay, and this is the front we're looking at. So it's upside down, we're looking at the front. Now up in the left hand corner, you can see by the yellow arrows, we do have some face frames that are already in place. If we move to the right, the red arrows, I've drawn in the face frames that we have to add yet, and these actually won't be seen. All they are is backing for our hinges and support for the cabinet itself. Remember, we're going to put a complete face over this entire cabinet of the particle board and then just route out the area where the doors are going to go. The black arrow indicates the shelf supports. Now you can determine the height of your shelf supports to give you your shelf spacing by what you want to store in it. You may have some specific needs for larger or smaller shelves, so you could actually add more shelves or take them away as you see fit. And yeah, so there you go. We'll get on to the next one. Now we're looking at the back of the cabinet. Remember, the cabinet is still upside down, and then the back of the cabinet, you can see the blue circles here where we've notched out a place for a 1x4 board to go across the back of the cabinet and fit flush with the back. It's going to give it some strength, and we're going to use that to help hang the cabinet on the wall rather than using a solid back. We don't need to use a solid back if we do this with let-in bracing. The orange air circle at the bottom there indicates the one that we've already got in. It's let in already into the back of the cabinet. White arrow is just showing you the 1x4, and then the yellow arrow up at the top is you were looking at the back of the face frame that's already in there, and that's going to provide us with some backing to screw our one-piece face onto the cabinet. Again, we're looking at the front of the cabinet upside down, and now we'll answer the question as to why we have this overhang on the sides. It's a 3-inch overhang over the bottom shelf, and the orange arrow indicates the 4-foot fluorescent fixture that we're going to put in there. So when this cabinet is up on the wall, we're going to have some lighting hidden lighting under the cabinet to light up our work area. And now here's our finished product. You can see the black arrow indicating the two nicely routed out MDF doors with their cabinet handles. Blue arrow indicating our hidden space for our fluorescent light underneath. And the orange arrow, this is a hanging tip. If you hang the cabinet down from the ceiling a little bit, depending on the height of your ceiling, this also gives you an extra shelf for putting small stuff up there, maybe some wood storage. I store in my own particular shop, I think I've got some of my drill boxes up there that carry my cordless drills. So there you have it. Very basic. You can use some of those ideas for building your own cabinetry. Good luck, and thanks for visiting the Handyman's Haven.